Hello, friends. Hi, happy Wednesday. Happy middle of the week. Hopefully, you've had a relaxing start to the week, or at least not too intense. And hopefully, your week is going well so far. Hello, Tai Tai. How's it going? Um, let's just see. I'm just going to organize my. Well, he's running. He's running a little late today, but that's okay. We're all good. Yeah, hopefully you're well wherever you are. Happy time zone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hopefully the weather is treating you well and it's not too cold or too snowy or anything too extreme. We're back to rain in the Vancouver area, so back to just the way it is. Super rainy. Monday was really, really nice though. It was very sunny and just uplifting. You know, it felt like spring. And I love that feeling. So I did stream on Monday. I did, if you weren't able to join, the replay is up. You could watch the VOD on Twitch and the replay on YouTube. We did some journaling, did some drawing flowers from a reference photo. I love that because I can sort of turn off my mind and just focus on trying to draw or capture what I see on in a photo. And so there's not much room for like imagination or just, thinking too hard about like what I'm drawing. But on the flip side, I also like doing, imaginative, creative, abstract type of drawing and painting. And so that's what this stream is going to be for. We're going to do some painting with fountain pen inks. So if you've never done that before, it's definitely something I would recommend trying. It's super fun. Another way of using up fountain pen inks, other than just inking up your pens, but also a way to explore those inks that you have, and getting a feel for the different properties and stuff. So Hellcat, how's it going? Happy hump day. Hopefully, the other side of that hump is going to be a relaxing sort of end to your week. And also happy March, because this is our first week and we're in it. I'm glad that February is done and we're kind of moving closer to spring and, just nice weather, hopefully. So speaking of flowers, right? Spring brings flowers, brings blooms. So it's kind of a nice tie-in as well. But we're going to do some painting. If you're working or you're lurking, feel free to have me on in the background and we'll chat. If you have questions and you want to throw them in the chat, we can talk about stationery and answer questions if you have any. But yeah, otherwise it's going to be kind of chill. This is just how my streams go. They're very just chill, not intense. We're just going to have some fun with stationery and be creative and, just mindful of making time to enjoy the things that we have, right? Hello, Inky. How's it going? Happy Wednesday. Happy midweek. Hopefully your week has been going okay. If you're joining us new here, I'm Corolla on socials. I'm from Corolla, and I love all things stationery, and I love fountain pens and fountain pen inks, and I love painting with them. And so that's what we're going to do today. Also, if you're into planners and journals and, having notebooks to keep yourself organized and creative and mindful, tomorrow, my latest YouTube video is coming out, and it's just an update on my planner and journal lineup. So how my planners and journals fared in February, how I used them, a couple of changes maybe, just to kind of tweak my planning process. But yeah, look out for that. I'm on YouTube at From Corolla. If you don't follow me there, and you're interested, take a look. And yeah, and we're just going to kind of, take it a little easy. We're just going to have some fun today. So what I wanted to do today was paint with fountain pen inks. I use, for the purpose of painting with fountain pen inks, especially on stream, I like to use the Everyday Book by Galen Leather. And it is a Tomoe River Paper notebook, just blank pages. And I like this because it's fountain pen friendly paper and it's the most used paper for me. So most of my journals and notebooks have, over the past few years been TRP. And so I like to use the paper that I most often use in my everyday sort of routines, just to kind of, especially if I'm going to ink up my pens with these inks, I like to get a feel for what they look like on the paper that I'm going to use them. But that being said, I like to use and compare those inks on watercolor paper. And so I just use a watercolor sketchbook with cold pressed watercolor paper. Obviously, it's meant to handle paints and inks. And so you can add more water, you can be a little bit more generous with the amount of inks that you use on watercolor paper. And so I like to kind of compare and contrast how inks kind of look. A lot of times, you kind of see more vibrancy, more of those properties being reflected on watercolor paper, just because it allows for, all those properties to come out. And really shine. So I kind of like to compare and contrast. So that's what I'm going to do today. We're going to paint with some fun inks. What book are you using for a journal? Are you talking about what you're seeing here or just in general? Because I use quite a few books. But for like daily just writing, for daily journaling, I like to use a traveler's notebook in the standard size. Just because I can take out inserts, throw them in, add ephemera and things like that, and not worry too much about it being too chunky at the end of the year. But aside from that, I have other notebooks that kind of support my writing practice. And in terms of using fountain pen inks, I like to use a Midori notebook, a lined notebook for a stream of consciousness writing. So just taking out a fountain pen and just writing for the sake of, just getting words on paper and not worrying too much about how it looks or what it sounds like or aesthetics or anything like that. So for me, it's kind of a balance between the types of paper I use, especially for fountain pens. So it's kind of a mix of like using TN lightweight inserts and Midori cream paper. So those are kind of my go-tos for journaling or writing purposes. Hi, April. How are you? I love the colors on these paintings. Kind of bright, right? It's a bright palette. This is what I did in my stream last week. So this is where we kind of left off with fun I had ink samples that I had gotten from a meetup with pen friends. And so it's kind of like a muted spring bright palette. I don't know. Very spring palette. Yeah. It's kind of a mix of, different shades that I would probably want to use in my spring palettes. Hi, Daily T. How are you doing? We're halfway through the week. Yeah. Your first fountain pen arrived today. The Kakuno. Yay. Congrats. I hope you've tried it. Have you tried it? I hope you enjoy it too. I have a journal state. Yeah, I do. Yeah. Oh, in Calgary, I can wish for spring. Yeah, I know we have a rainy start to the spring weather, but I will say, in my area where I am, just outside of Vancouver, we're starting to see cherry blossoms. So that's a definite sure sign of spring because it's always a lead in, right? Cherry blossoms, budding, and love that color palette, right? So pinkish, really, very pastel-y kind of colors, and I love that. Hi, Indy, how's it going? Are you winning things lately? Congrats, winner. Giveaway winners. It hasn't gotten to your house yet. Okay. Yeah, it's out for delivery. Oh, that's always like the hardest part of of waiting for something to come, when it's like, it's out there, it's on its way. You just have to be patient enough for it to be there. Yeah, when you get home, right? So you're like, yes, I just want to try it out and, you know, play with it. But hopefully it's there. Hopefully you're able to kind of play around with it a little bit and get a feel for it, because that's always fun. All right. So I'm just going to I'm going to get started. I'm going to put some of the fountain pen inks into a palette. So let's chat and do that. The inks that I'm using. So I think I put it in my title. Yeah, good. I was like, I hope I updated my title this morning. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it doesn't. So the inks that I'm using today are specifically the TheCoffeeMonsterzCo inks. So far, Helen has released three inks. Three inks, and there's a fourth one that she just announced that's coming. Hopefully soon. In April. I think she kind of mentioned it's on the way. So there are three inks that have been released so far, that I have, thankfully, and I'll show them to you. But I also have a sample of the ink that is coming out. So we're gonna swatch it, we're gonna paint with it, and you know, talk about it if you want. And I'll kind of show, and we'll kind of take a look at each of the inks as well. So we'll kind of have fun with that. So the first two inks that were released are Robert Oster and the TheCoffeeMonsterzCo collab inks, Day to Night and Coffee Monster, and really, really, really nice shades. Definitely up my alley of the types of inks that I like to use. So take a look at those. And then the Coffee Monster ink, I had it in one of my vials, so I'm going to use that up. If you're not familiar with my vial system, my ink vials, it's basically when I get new inks or when I get ink samples or inks that I want to play around with, I just add them to ink vials with numbers on top, and they sit on my desk. And basically, whenever I have time to play with inks or, you know, to paint with them, I try and use these inks just to get a feel for them and explore them and have fun with them. And so the visual cue of having them sit on my desk is something that's helpful for me, and just kind of reminds me to, you know, keep playing with my inks. So even if it's just getting a dip pen and using that ink to write with, or, you know, do something small with it, it's just more likely to be used up than if, you know, I just leave the ink bottle in my drawer and kind of, you know, I don't see it. So it tends to not be top of mind. So the third ink that I'm putting in my palette here is the TheCoffeeMonsterzCo and Esterbrook, and this was part of the Esty release that both Esterbrook and the TheCoffeeMonsterzCo had, and it came with an ink called Forgotten Iced Coffee, and it's a very nice sort of taupey beige, very warm brown gray. I don't know how to, it is literally forgotten iced coffee. So you kind of have the elements of like a coffee, like the warm brown. But then you have some of that milk, like a latte concept in there as well. And so it's more taupey than brown, I think. Very interesting. And I actually, it's very, very interesting. I like it. Okay, so the ink that's coming out soon, I hope, sometime in April, I think, is called Murky Pond Water. And it's another collaboration between Robert Oster and the TheCoffeeMonsterzCo. And I'm going to show you the link to it because I don't have the bottle, but Helen was kind enough to share a sample of the bottle that she did have recently when I met up with her and some of my pen friends. And So I'll show you what the actual sort of official ink release looks like. So on the TheCoffeeMonsterzCo website, there's a blurb about it, and I'll share the link if you want to take a look. Let's see. So Murky Pond Water, Robert Oster ink exclusive, 50 mils. I love the cap. It's so cute. The little emoji sort of peeking its head up. But it's a very interesting shade. It's like a dark, dark gray with some green, sort of a reddish pinkish hue to it too. So let's see what it says. Yeah, so there's been a delay and won't be released this weekend, which I think Helen wanted to initially. The fun underlying tones. I like that. Yeah, so Helen is kind of like me where I like legible ink and I tend to lean towards darker shades just because it's so much easier to read, but I like interesting colors. So dark gray with green, turquoise, and lavender notes. That's interesting. So that's a swatch that Helen has shared on the website. But we'll take a look. We'll take a look on TRP, Tomoe River Paper, and watercolor paper as well, because I think the swatch on here, yeah, so this is like the official sort of Robert Oster swatch. But we'll do some comparisons. Hi, Archeo Pen. Yes, this is the TheCoffeeMonsterzCo exclusive Robert Oster collaboration ink. It's called Murky Pond Water, and it's hopefully coming out next week or April or whenever. I have no idea, but it was meant to come out this weekend, I think, in line with her 10th anniversary event, which is so cool. But I think just because of delays and, usual sort of things, sometimes come in a little bit late. So I think it will be released at a later date. But I have a sample of it, which you can't see because my window is here. But I have a sample of it, which Helen kindly shared when I met up with her a couple weeks ago. So we'll take a look because it's been announced. So it's not like I'm, sharing an embargoed thing. So we'll have some fun. And I thought, since I'll show this off, I might as well just use the other TheCoffeeMonsterzCo or TCMC inks that I have. And so far there have been 3 released, 2 of them Robert Oster collaboration inks, and 1 of them with Esterbrook. So if you're not aware, or you are thinking of or are looking into them, I think these 2 previous ink releases are sold out. I'm not sure if you can find them anywhere anymore, but hopefully, if there's enough interest, hopefully they'll come back at some point. At least 1 of them, maybe. I don't know. And I'm not sure if you can still get the Esterbrook one either, but again, hopefully if there's enough interest, some of these inks might come back. But yeah, we'll take a look at the new one and see what it looks like and kind of, what it looks like on different paper as well. Yeah, it looks nice. It is very interesting, I think. So for painting, I like to use round paintbrushes, but in different sizes, and I also don't mind using like flat brushes and different, just to kind of play around with using the brush to make different shapes. So for me, it's not like it has to be a specific shape when I'm painting or exploring in ink, right? It just has to be able to go on paper and resemble the outline of flowers or flower petals. So let's swatch them as well. I'm using watercolor paper here. So let's put that there. And this first one is Robert Oster, TCMC, Day to Night. So it's this really very nice purple black mauve, sort of a dark mauve color, or plum. It's really nice because it's not too bright, but it's still very saturated and you know, brings out the color, even though you do get that sort of dark tone to it. So that's Day to Night. Then we have Coffee Monster, which is coffee brown, but also a really deep, rich shade of brown. So I'm just going to put a little bit because I don't want the brown to take over too much of the bouquet. So we'll add it more like an accent color than a main color. You don't use any black ink at all, Hellcat. That's interesting. Do you prefer, do you use black like gel pens or ballpoint pens or things like that, or just not black at all? I can understand not wanting to use black fountain pen inks for sure, though I do, but it's not like for interesting purposes. It's not like when I'm like really wanting to enjoy sitting down with my fountain pen and write with it. It's more for note taking and like just getting words on the paper. You like it? Yeah. I'm slowly getting over my thought that normal writing needs to be in black. Yeah. Or blue. I used to equate, well, actually, let's put some, forgot to swatch it. I used to equate blue, especially bright blue ink, with schoolwork and just like having to take notes and stuff. And I'm slowly getting over that a little bit. So black and blue are kind of in that same, like, I just think of it as more of a professional or you know, just like taking notes and writing things down and stuff like that. So that's why I tend to lean toward brown for like the in-between where I want to like journal, but you know, it doesn't have to be super bright, fun, vibrant colors. The brown inks are kind of my in-between there, where it's like a balance between, it's like a serious something, you know, I'm writing something serious, but I'm not taking notes for school or something. I don't know. In my mind, it just seems like something different I'm using it for. All right, well, let's see. I think this was... Okay. I think this one is Forgotten Iced Coffee, and that is Murky Pond Water. But I'm just gonna double check because the last thing I want to do is like label them wrong. So let's put this in here. And use a different brush. Okay. All right, so this one is the new Murky Pond Water. Yeah. So and this one is Forgotten Iced Coffee. So let's add this in here. Going with sort of a darker palette today. I'm going to put this aside here. Yeah, it's a pretty mauvey purple. You're purposely trying to be more whimsical. I love that. You end up doing more purple. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, right? Like, what does that mean to you to push yourself a little bit in terms of the colors that you use and stuff? Like for me, it was more reds, pinks, and oranges. And just trying to get over that, like it's too bright to look at kind of thing, right? Like red, relating that back to like correction and like making mistakes and correcting your mistakes and stuff. And so initially when I was getting into fountain pen inks, I kind of stayed away from bright like pink, red, or orange shades. And I just kind of slowly got into them, you know, just little by little, and a lot more painting than writing with them. But the more I painted with them, the more I realized that they're just really like fun, bright, cheery colors, right? And sometimes you need those colors. And so more so for summer palettes, I started to incorporate some of those oranges and reds. But again, you know, and springtime, I try to do at least like 1 or 2 pink inks in my pen. Just to change it up a little bit, because at some point it does get kind of monotonous, right? If you're doing the same inks over and over, at least for me. I know some people like to have sort of their set of like inks that they always use, but I like to change it up once in a while, just add in like those surprise colors, 1 or 2 pens where you're like, whoa, what's happening here? It's super bright. Just because it's so fun, right? So I do love purples for painting. I try and be a little bit more open about inking them up for pens. But naturally, I just kind of tend to be like, ooh, that's a really nice purple. I'd love to paint flowers with that. So. Hi, Paul Falgal. How's it going? Furry friends. Happy Wednesday. It's been a bit crazy over here. Oh, well, I am glad that you were able to join. And we all need this. We all need this. I needed this too. Hellcat purples, blues, browns, pinks, and oranges. Nice. I like that. That's awesome. I like that there's like a balance between like bright, earthy, you know, neutral sort of tones as well. That's awesome. I just inked a dusty pink for my spring spread. I love dusty shades. Like the grayness to different colors. Like I'm a big fan of dusty blue. So it's kind of like a blue gray. But yeah, that dusty pink is really, really nice. And I feel like it's a good sort of in between. Like if you like pink but don't like, you know, pastel, bright pink, it's like getting the dusty pink or like a mauvey pink where it's like, okay, it's sort of like a happy medium for me anyways. Like I kind of equate it to like, okay, we're going to tone it down, but we're going to have that fun color anyways. I think this was, okay. I'm going to add a little bit more of the purple just to bring it out a little bit. Purple. I'm going to add some of this new ink into the leaf too, just to mix it up a little bit. All right, so if you're just joining, I don't know, G, if you heard, if you were here earlier when I was talking through the inks that I'm using, but they're all the TheCoffeeMonsterzCo inks. So we have Day to Night, we have Coffee Monster, which I have in this ink vial, so I'm trying to use it up a little bit. And then we also have Forgotten Iced Coffee with Esterbrook. And then I have a sample of the new ink that's coming out at some point soon, but it's called Murky Pond Water, and it's another Robert Oster exclusive for TCMC. So we're just gonna check it out a little bit and see what it looks like on TRP and on watercolor paper, and see what we think. So maybe I'll add a little bit more to here just to have it stand out a little bit. Okay. So that's what we have. I like it. It's dark and moody. You know what? It actually kind of reflects the weather today, where it's like rainy and it's just the start of spring. So, you know, you have a little bit of the purpley pinkish hues, but mostly it's like rain, clouds, and yeah. I've got a gray, green, dusty pink, orange, and blue for spring. Oh, a J.R. Bouquet Danton. That's all. That's good that we can all be together. Yeah, I actually found that I'm venturing more towards purples and pinks. You're usually on the greens, blues, and browns. Yeah, that's similar to me, I think. Purples and pinks are nice, I think, in concentration, like in, you know, just a little bit. Like when you're kind of concentrating a little bit of purple and pink, I think for me is kind of like what I'm comfortable with. Like not too much, just enough. I just got a great gunmetal blue ink from Drum Ghouls. Ooh, interesting. I love all of those inks. Yeah. You bought 2 bottles? That's awesome. I mean, like, I've been giving some samples away as well. I don't think you can see it really here, but it's almost like halfway done. So, I don't know. I hope they're re-released at some point, because I might have to grab more. Yeah, reflection of your weather too. It feels like winter again. No. Yay, streaking. 10 stream streak. Awesome. You're streaking. Nothing to see here. Just Pop Out Gal streaking. Switchman Penco, the big iron. That sounds intense. The whole line is fantastic. Has a big Birmingham ink vibe. Yeah, you know what? I think you're right. That could be what it is. It is that kind of like, yeah. And also interesting ink names, similar to Birmingham, where they're just like, you know, very descriptive of whatever ink it is. Like, yeah, you know what? So, Murky Pond Water, yeah, you know what? Maybe that's what that is. So funny. All right, so while that dries, we'll do a little bit of painting on watercolor paper. Yeah, and then we'll label and we'll see. We'll talk about it. All right. So let's use these inks again. Add a little bit of water. So that way I can spread it out a little bit more. And explore a little bit of the desaturated version of it. Because a lot of times when you're painting or, you know, adding color to TRP, or you're coloring something in, a lot of times you're kind of using that saturated version of the ink, even when you're inking up your pen, right? And you're writing with it, you get like that version of the ink that it's meant to look like. But when you're painting, especially on watercolor paper, it's kind of fun if you can sort of stretch out that ink a little bit by adding water, and you kind of get the muted version of it as well, which is nice. Like, that's not how the ink is intended to be used in a fountain pen per se, but when you're painting with it, you know, you can kind of explore it a little bit more. And see sort of the different layers of the ink. So I'm just going to do that. So that was Day to Night, and this is Coffee Monster. So this is more like the type of ink that I would write with versus like using it as like my bright, you know, fun palette or whatever. Like it's one of those, like, it's a reliable color, it's a reliable ink. So I'm more likely to use it for just note-taking and writing, journaling. Just because I know it's a color that, you know, I won't be like, whoa, what's happening? It's there and it's doing its thing. So I'm just going to add it a little bit too. And then this, so this is Murky Pond Water. I'm gonna add a little water to that as well. Kind of be like, because it does have that gray color, but it has this undertone of green. So it kind of looks like you know, leaves in the dark or something like that, like in the shadow, which is interesting. And add it. I'm gonna blend it a little bit too. But yeah, it's true. The description is like it has these underlying tones that you can pull out, and I think it sort of speaks to if you are more of like a if you're more into like lavender, purple colors, or you know, pink too. You can kind of see that coming through. So let's add it into some of the other ink. Maybe not that much. Yeah, so we'll take a look as it dries, but I'm just, it's very interesting. I will say that right off the bat. It's a very interesting ink. BRB. Hi, it's Haley. How's it going? How are you doing, friend? All right, so this is Forgotten Iced Coffee. Which I think here is coming out a lot more green than let's see. I'm going to re-add this to my palette and just take a look again because it just seems very greenish. But maybe that's what's being reflected on in the watercolor paper. Yeah, it's a little bit darker. But definitely that green, like green gray. So let's add that in here. All right. All right. Okay. So here we have the inks on watercolor paper, and as they're drying, I love, you know, watching inks dry. I love sort of looking at inks as they dry, just because you can start to see some of those properties come through. And you can still see where it's wet, so you know the ink is going to pool there. But even with blending, so when you're layering, inks on top of inks, you'll start to mix them a little bit. But even so, it's really interesting to watch how they sort of blend together. So that action too. I know it sounds boring, but it's just one of those things I find mesmerizing, to watch them kind of interact and blend together and mix and stuff. It is pretty, isn't it? Yeah, it is very pretty. Because just from, just taking a quick glance at it, you kind of think, well, they're dark colors. Yeah, you see some brown, you see some, purple, pink, but it is kind of a darker palette. But when you take a closer look, especially when it dries, we'll start to see the different layers and how they kind of, the different tones that they bring out. So you have some underlying tones for sure in the new ink. That's really, really interesting. I'm a big fan of that when you have an ink, a standard ink, right? Where it's like there's no shimmer, there's no sheen, and it's not a pigment. It's, it's just meant to be a standard ink. But then it has these like different tones that come out depending on how saturated it is, or if you're painting versus writing. And if you're writing with it using a wider nib, like a broad, a stub, something like that, that will kind of play around with bringing out those elements that you may or may not see with a finer nib. But painting with it is pretty obvious, right? It's an obvious way of getting all those elements to play and be reflected on paper. So let's let that dry. And then I think I can label this, should be dry. And then this one too. So the painting we did on TRP, I think is dry, as far as I can see. So this is like the muted version of the watercolor piece. And probably a little bit more accurate too if you were going to use it on fountain pen friendly paper like TRP or something similar. Is that you're not going to get these bright, vibrant tones unless you're kind of letting it be saturated, or you're writing with a very wide nib. But let's label this. So we have Robert Oster, Day to Night, and then we have Robert Oster, TCMC, Coffee Monster. Then we have the new upcoming Robert Oster X TCMC Murky Pond Water. Just sounds so lovely, especially to drink. Don't drink your ink. And then we have Esterbrook. Forgotten Iced Coffee. If you forget it long enough, it turns a sort of green shade. but it's very nice. I like that Coffee Monster, which is, you know, it's meant to be this coffee shade, coffee brown, probably without milk. But if you add milk and you forget about it a little bit, and there's ice sitting in there that just melts and, yeah, it just kind of waters it down for you. It's forgotten iced coffee. So I like those two shades working together. And then this one, Murky Pond Water. I love the undertones here, the colors that you get. And it is actually a little bit similar to Day to Night in that, where you're like, you can kind of pull out a little bit of that purpley pink color. So very nice palette, I have to say. Like all those inks work so well together. Not that they have to, right? Like a collection of inks, especially if it's a collaboration and limited release inks, they don't have to work together. They could be whatever they want. It's just kind of, it's nice when they do. And you can use them all together if you wanted to, because they just go well together. All right. So those are the inks, and I'm just going to leave that there just to remind us. Just move this. But yeah, let me know what you think. Which one is more to your liking? Like, which ink are you more likely to use on a regular basis? Whether it's for journaling or writing, or general note-taking. Which one are you more likely to be drawn to? So here we have them on TRP, and I will label them here too. I really quite like them. They do make a good palette. Yeah, I totally agree. I didn't expect that. And I wouldn't be disappointed if they didn't work well together. It's just, I think the tones and the shades, they just kind of bring out like the kind of colors that work well in a palette. Okay, so So there you have those inks on TRP. And again, similar to what we kind of saw on watercolor paper. You can see that there's this, you know, you have the underlying tones in Murky Pond Water. I actually kind of like it more on TRP because now you can kind of see, like, there is the gray sort of general, like, you know, when you look at it first glance, it does look gray. That's probably the first color I would call out. But then when you look at it closer, it does have, you know, the purple, the pink, and the blue, right? Like it's more, like it leans towards blue. And I love that as a blue ink person. I love different shades of blue, blues and greens and teals. And so if anything kind of leans towards like, you know, a cooler blue, I like that. So I actually think I like this ink on TRP more, which is nice. But also, the forgotten iced coffee is super interesting, isn't it? It's like, what color is that? I also prefer it on TRP because it is like that taupe. Yeah, it's like a warm gray brown, I think. It's really nice. In that, I think it's like, it sort of plays between shades. And I like that because it makes it interesting. And, you know, you kind of have the reliable, stable brown, if you're a brown ink person. And then this kind of fun mauve color just to break it up a little bit. But it's not like super, it's not like all out there where you're like, whoa, calm down. But it's just having a little bit of fun. Probably Coffee Monster. Yeah. Pen update. Amazon says between 5:15 and 8:15 by 9 p.m. Eastern. Okay. So you should have it by 6 o'clock Pacific. Well, it's a lot of time to wait for things, right? That's okay. All right. So I am going to add some detail to this. Using Kakimori Pigment Black ink. I love using pigment ink for drawing because it stands out and it's sort of like sits on top of ink and doesn't blend into it, which is nice because that's not what I want here. I obviously don't want it to blend in and reactivate the inks that are already there. I just want it to sit on top and then dry that way. But also it's dark enough that I don't have to add too much to make it stand out either. So that's why I prefer pigment ink for drawing. And my kind of go-to dip pen or dip nib is the Kakimori stainless steel, just because I've been using it so long. So it's kind of one of those, like, I feel comfortable using it. So I'm not going to add too much on top because, you know, I still want to enjoy the different inks and how they kind of play together. So I use a lot of white space so that I don't cover up too much of the ink. But I do want to kind of make them look like something or kind of make them fit in, kind of like puzzle pieces in a way, to make this bouquet. Especially this new ink because I want to showcase it in a subtle way because it's not like it's the main ink in this piece. I think what kind of stands out is, you know, the mauve, purple, pink, but I also don't want to cover up too much of that, so make it stand out a little bit. Does pigment ink reactivate other pigment ink? Yeah, it might. I think so. I think it does, just because pigment ink tends to dry slower and there's more concentrated. So it tends to be absorbed at a slower rate on paper. But that being said, I don't know if I've tried that. But I assume that might be the case. Unless you wait long enough for pigment to completely dry. Then I think you should be fine. That being said too, with standard inks, if you wait for it to completely dry and you add standard ink on top of it, it's not necessarily going to, especially on TRP. Watercolor paper is a little bit different because as soon as you have water element on the paper, adding more water to it will reactivate it a little bit. Maybe not like all of it, but it will bring out a little bit of that color. Fountain pen friendly paper is a little bit different in that if it's dry, it tends to stay dry. But what might happen is if you have standard ink and let it dry and then you add more standard ink on top of it, it just looks a little flat. It doesn't necessarily look like you have different layers and they're all sort of vibrant, saturated layers. It starts to look a little bit flat. And so that's why when I use pigment ink on top, because it dries, it takes longer to dry, but then it dries as sort of the pure black color of pigment. And so it doesn't look like it blends into the ink that's underneath it. And that's the kind of look that I like and go for. That I don't necessarily want it to blend in so that it looks like one layer of ink. I want it to look like, you know, you have ink underneath and then you have sort of this dark, rich line on top. So you can see as it's drying, especially when you put sort of a wider line too, and use up some of that white space that you have. It sort of grips to that paper and kind of sits on top. You can see these pools of ink here as well. Those colors dried beautifully, yeah. Welcome back. Yeah, they do look really nice, don't they? I think I've noticed this especially about Forgotten Iced Coffee, because I have painted with it before and I've noticed that the way that it pools is very interesting. It's very nice. And it gives it a little bit more like interest. It makes it stand out a little bit more than, you know, if it was just kind of like this flat, muted version. It would be very easy to kind of, you know, dismiss it or not notice it at all. But the way it sort of pools and you get those different, you know, those underlying tones coming through, just makes it stand out a little bit more. You're like, ooh, what is that ink? At least for me, I kind of look at it, I'm like, well, that's not a green or a gray. It's like, you know, it's not for everyone, but I find it interesting in this, you know, using it in this way, looking at it. Also really, really like Murky Pond Water. And I got it a couple weeks ago, like I mentioned, but I did a swatch and I thought, okay, this is a really nice ink. But the more, you know, you play with the ink, the more you paint or kind of just like use it, the more you use an ink and really explore it and look at it, you tend to see it in different lights. You tend to kind of see it in a different way. So from your initial reaction to like, oh, well, that's gray or that's blue or whatever. You know, it's that initial color. But a lot of times with fountain pen inks, even if they're standard inks, you can go a little bit deeper. And I find the easiest way is to either swatch them or paint with them, right? Because you're spreading out the ink a little bit more, taking up a little bit more surface. And I find it easier in that way to really appreciate, like, you know, the different layers that go into the different inks. And sometimes, you know, you'll be left with one shade, it's a flat shade, great. But sometimes they can surprise you. It looks like dried flowers. It kind of does, yeah. It does have that kind of vibe to it. Or you're looking at it in low light and on a cloudy day. Forgotten Iced Coffee is the wild one. Yeah, I love seeing how it reacts to different paper. It is a wild card. And, you know, I have seen where people have swatched it and it's just not their kind of ink, you know. It's fine. It's not for everyone, I don't think. Because it is very layered in that, you know, if you're not into this kind of ink, right, then it's fine. But I haven't had issues with it being illegible or anything like that. But the more I when I use it in paintings or I use it for swatching just to have fun with inks and stuff, the more I'm like, you know what? There's something to this ink. It's just different, which is nice. It's a nice change sometimes. Slightly impatient, yeah. Forgotten Iced Coffee is right on point, right? It is like when you're like, what's that color? It's this color. Don't forget your iced coffee. All right, so we'll let that dry. Let's see, let's put that in here. And let's take a look at this. Whoa. Definitely darker. I did a lot more mixing and blending too, so they're not all true to color to their inks. But definitely you can see the difference between just, you know, general painting on TRP or something similar and painting on watercolor paper or paper that's meant for paint and water and layering too. So let's label this too. I think it's all dry. Maybe. Okay. All right. They just fit. I definitely know that feeling. I think we all know that feeling. We're right there with you. Definitely know that feeling. All right, so let's add some ink on top of this too. Now this is a little bit darker. Some of the inks and the way that I mix them, which is fine. Like I said, I like dark inks. It's just for painting sometimes, especially if you're drawing on top, it's hard to see the line, the different lines, which, you know, it's fine. We work with that. But another way around it too is to kind of incorporate more of the white space and make that part of the design, whatever you're drawing or trying to convey, because white space will sort of fill in the gaps of what you're not able to see, maybe because the ink is too dark. So if you kind of, you know, do your lines around the white space, I find that it's a little bit easier to see what it is that's there than if you're trying to force, you know, black on top of a dark color. Otherwise it'll be too dark, too much black going on. Also, texture wise, it's a little bit more, I don't say challenging, but it's different when you're using a dip nib or a dip pen on paper like watercolor paper when it's textured. So lines won't look as smooth or as consistent as like on TRP, because it's smooth paper you're working with here. But here it's textured, so it kind of, you feel the nib, the ink distribute a little less evenly. But now that the ink has dried, we can see a little bit more clearly where the different tones are kind of separating a little bit. You know, you have a little bit more of that pink lavender here and a little bit more of that blue-gray here. So you can see where they're separating out, especially when you add a little bit of water, right, to stretch out that ink. So that's what we're doing on watercolor paper. It's adding a little bit of water just to see a little bit more of those underlying layers of color here too. And I think here is, you know, more to the true shade of that ink, where it's dark, but you can definitely see that there are, you know, other colors playing in there. And then you get the Forgotten Iced Coffee, I think, are some of the lighter colors. I ended up mixing it in with some of the brown, but it's there. It's definitely there. And that's an interesting one here too. And yeah, Day to Night is a really nice one. I like especially like when you kind of add in some inks. It's also very kind of cool there. Because they make their own shape, right? When you're mixing and blending inks together, they're kind of they end at some point and you kind of see the pools. I'll add a little bit here. Very cool. I like it. It's definitely moody spring. We're going for moody spring today. We kind of went with bright, lively spring last week with that lime green color really bringing out the palette. Today we're shifting a little bit to go back to, well, it's raining, so we have a little bit of a moody spring happening right now. It's the start of the season. And we'll get there. Very cool. So we have TRP, and then we have watercolor paper. You can definitely see where you get a little bit of a richer color, right, on watercolor. And while here you do see the darkness of that ink coming through. It does flatten out a little bit, for sure. So it helps when, especially if you want to see the different layers and the different characteristics to an ink, it helps to paint with it or, swatch and take up as much space as you can or want to on TRP, because that way you can kind of stretch it out and see a little bit more of what they're like. Right? I don't know. It makes sense that these two colors, Coffee Monster and Day to Night, were released together, because they play off of each other really well. But I don't know, these two are kind of the lighter, more neutral shades, but I find them a little bit more interesting than these two, which are like just standard colors. If you like them or not, if you're going to use them or not, it's all good. But these two are kind of like, what is this? What am I looking at here? What do you like? Do you like gray? Do you like blue? Do you like taupe? Warm brown? Because both of them have got different different layers of colors. And they are very good accent colors, or they're great sort of, if you don't want something to, jump out at you at the page, if you're inking up your pen, if you're more into muted tones or neutrals, things like that. I think these two make sense. And I love that this is the Murky Pond Water. I love that this is the newest release because I feel like it's the most interesting of them. But it kind of encompasses a little bit of everything. And then, adds another color, right? So I'm really excited for it to be released. And it's a different stages of spring. Yeah, that's where we're painting. We're going through the different stages. It's okay. I think we were kind of in a fake spring vibe earlier. We're like, yes, spring is coming, but it's actually not for a little bit. But if you did miss it, this is the ink on TheCoffeeMonsterzCo.com. Ready to ship coming April. And usually, I don't know if you're not aware or you're, new to the Coffee Monsters Co. Helen has started in the last couple years, I think. She started to offer this pre-order option So when something is released, it's ready to ship. So there's, a certain amount of inventory that they have on hand. Once that sells out, because TCMC tends to sell it quickly on certain things, then it switches to this pre-order. And in that case, and usually if it's ready to ship, sometimes depending on the item, there might be a certain number you can order. And it's just to make sure that as many people as possible, whoever want this product, can get it, right? So that's why usually there's a restriction on how many you can order at once. But with the pre-order, you can order as many as you want. So, I mean, ink bottles is one thing, but other things, where you're like, I just want like a bunch of these, maybe to give away or to give samples, etc. Or to have things, if you use them often, you might want another one or two to have on hand when you're done the first one. But the pre-order one also, you can think about it a little bit. There's less pressure on you to order it right away, right? Where, we kind of deal with that a lot, where it's like, it's going to sell out if you're going to think about it for like a minute or two. Panda Kakuno, I'm looking at you. But in terms of like pre-ordering, you can think about it and look at, if there's swatches available, look at it, see if it's something that you want to add to your collection. If not, totally fine, right? You don't have to have all of the inks, but if it's something that you like, you can take your time thinking about it, getting it if you want to, ordering it. And pre-orders, you have to wait because they'll be manufactured after it's ordered. So it takes about 3 months or so. But at least that way, you get to think about whether or not you want it, and you can order as many as you want, and still have the chance of at least trying it out or getting it for yourself, right? Panda Kakuno, we're never gonna let that one go. Not all of us being like, oh, maybe I do want it, but it's not available. So unless you want to spend more on it, which I don't. Our business is the one that made me grab things when they release. Yeah. Oh yeah, TCMC is one of those brands where it's like, it's just the kind of community she has. Everyone loves Helen stuff, all of her products and stuff. And she's also a small shop, right? Like, she's not a huge manufacturer. And so things are limited, but they go super, super quick. And I'm so glad that she has that level of pre-order, which might not mean a lot to other people. But to people who have like lost out or missed out on certain releases because they just sell out so quickly, being able to pre-order it, at your own pace, to think about something and then commit to it. And yeah, you might have to wait a couple of months or a few months, but it's fine. Here we are trying to wait for a Daily Tea's Amazon package, which takes like a couple of hours, but you get it when you get it, and it makes it exciting regardless of when you get it, right? I was actually thinking about that very thing. Yeah, it's a perfect comparison. Yeah. It's I like when and I think a lot more brands have started to do this, if they weren't doing it before, is allowing for pre-orders, or for at least like pre-releasing something where it's coming. And so you can kind of think about it and like budget for it, or decide if it's something you want to spend money on and stuff. And then make that decision, which is like, I want to know what is coming up. I want to know what's going to be released. I know brands can't announce things. But at the same time, it's like, I just want to know what I'm budgeting for this year. Tell me what's coming out. Oh. I have returned. I need to get a bottle of the Murky Pond Water. Yeah, I love that bottle. Definitely have to pick up a bottle. At least one. Maybe two. Hi, Spicy. How's it going? How are you today? I think the anticipation is making it more fun. Yeah. It's just knowing it's coming. And knowing you can snag, like, you know, I would love to get one that I can, like in general, I would love to get something I can at least play with in the next week or two, depending on shipping. But pre-orders are like, you know, at least you don't miss out on the thing, which I think the disappointment of wanting something, having budgeted for it, you know, it's kind of committing to something and then having it sell out within the first couple minutes and you're like, no, I was here. I was here and I couldn't get it. It's that feeling of disappointment that I think everyone can kind of relate to, and that is just, oh, it's just disappointing because you had your hopes up and now it's like, well, not gonna get it. But the pre-order level, I think, makes it just a little bit better, where it's like, it's okay, at least you'll have it at some point. So brands don't need to announce anymore. They ship you this stuff. Yeah. I really love this for her. Yeah, she was meant to offer the pre-order because I think people would have eventually been turned off. I agree. I also really like that there's more like fountain pen related stuff. Selfishly, I'm just like, yes, more ink. More ink, more ink related stuff, pen related stuff, right? If you are into like kawaii stuff, right? This is the anniversary. Don't consider yourself enabled because of me, but if you were interested in this weekend's anniversary event, you could take a look at the other things that are coming out at least. Even though the ink won't be part of the release, sadly, there are other things. And the thing that kind of struck me are the lobster clasp charm, the fountain pen, the 2 fountain pens, and then also the dual brush pens. So cute. So cute. But, you know, other things that are kind of handy if you use sticky tabs or stamps or pockets to put your stickers in, you know, things like that. Pencil pouch. So many good things. So many good things. I am most excited for the ink though. So I will wait for that to come out patiently and I'll use my sample in the meantime. It's all good. Like when you have it in your cart, you're hitting the pay button and then it's gone. Oh, the worst feeling. And I've had that happen with other brands too, right? Where you're trying to get a traveler's notebook, a limited release traveler's notebook or whatever, and you have it in your cart. Yeah, it's, or the Panda Kakuno. I'm sure many people had it in their cart and then tried to check out and it was sold out. Like, at least we came in a little late to the game. We're like, well, oh well, there's none left. But imagine if you're like in that moment. The worst. I'm so ready for the week. Whoa. You are ready. Robin Hobb. Oh, God, pop-ups coming at me. Assassin's Apprentice. Oh. I think someone told me about this a little while ago. And they were like, you should read this. I was like, Assassin's Apprentice sounds familiar. But yeah, you are going to be busy reading. Have fun. Same as my friend Cass that owns Planet Wobots. Oh yeah, to create fountain pen stickers, and they're so cute. Yes, all of the fountain pen ink and fountain pen related stuff, please. Yeah, it is cute, right, Indy? Oh, nice. Planet Wobot. Ooh. Very cool. Yes, more fountain pens and fountain pen inks. I love using these stickers just to indicate like when I change out my pens and stuff like that, because it's like it draws my eye towards it, right? So it's like, this is when I changed out my pens, or this is when I did my currently inked or whatever. It's like if I can add a little bit of interest to that, then it kind of stands out to me too. Let me tell you, these 6 books will break your heart. No, don't tell me that. Do they at least do it in an interesting and gripping way? Because otherwise, no thank you. I don't want just my heart broken. I have Bridgerton for that. Oh, Papa Gal, I'm glad you're going to see your doctor though. And healthy vibes to you. I think Spicy's Fix just convinced me to try Robin Hobb. Yeah, you know, I'm gonna reconsider, but I want to know the writing style. Like, does it bring you in and then it just breaks your heart in a brutal, cruel way? Because I don't know if I'm emotionally invested in that kind of. He is really good. Okay. Omaha Dad Games. Okay. The way it's done, it's not like some sort of grim fantasy. Okay. I think that's what I was like. Do I have to prepare myself for something? Or is it kind of just like done in a, you know, you know what you're getting into, but not just to break your heart. Where you're kind of like, this was worth it. It is. Okay. Robin Hobb. Okay. I'll have to, you know what? I'm going to write it down because I'm pretty sure someone else, I don't think it was you, Spicy. Someone else mentioned the books. Or at least one of them. And I think they had read it or they were reading it or something like that. And they were like, yeah, it's interesting. I was like, okay. I like when other people recommend books depending on, you know, whether, like, how they found it, right? Like, if it was, like, really sad or really whatever. It's like giving a context to what I'm going to get into. Even if, like, I don't end up maybe liking it as much as they did. It's fine. It doesn't matter. I would still do it because it's like, there's a reason why people are drawn to certain kind of writing and certain books. And for me, it's just kind of interesting to be, you know, to see that world too. It's like, okay, you know, this is what you get out of these types of books or this type of writing. She does character so well. Oh, like character building. Yeah. That someone else was me. It could have been Spicy. I remember there was a stream where there was a lot of recommendations of like fantasy and just general kind of like really good books. And I was like, I need to write this down. So I wrote a few down, but gotta get them from my library. Spicy is notorious for liking Robin Hobb and Sailor. Yeah, Daily Tea, you know now, right? You know now. This is Spicy Miso. Welcome to Spicy's life. Robin Hobb, lots of books in general. All of the books. And Sailor Akibi. If Spicy Miso was stranded on an island and could have two things, it would be a book of some sort, a Robin Hobb book maybe, and Sailor Akibi. And a pen. As I have you, but Rex, yeah. Got to get through that. They were a lot of recommendations. I loved it. It was awesome. Yes. If you can make a Google Doc or some way to share your recommendations, Spicy, that would be awesome. I have like bits and pieces. So I'll get through them at some point. But I have written down this one, which like I'm very intrigued. Her prose is beautiful. She does characters so well, and the plots is okay. Like, you've sold me. Yeah, that's awesome. You kind of get a little bit of different things, which is like, I do want to read something that's like easy to read in terms of like it just flows really nicely. and it's well written in that way. But also you want to connect with characters, right? Like you get invested. Even if something happens to them, you get invested. And it's like, I want to follow who they are, like what makes them important people, or, the characters of the story. What's their story in the story? Yeah, it's an unofficial book club. Welcome. We talk about fountain pens, fountain pen inks, paints, painting, stationery, and books. Though personally, I think books are adjacent hobbies. Reading is like an adjacent hobby to being creative, I think. Storytelling, writing, the things that we do with fountain pens, right? Write, get our thoughts on paper, spend time with, reflecting and stuff like that. So I just feel like reading is like, it makes sense, especially if you can get lost in like different worlds. And I like the balance of like fiction to nonfiction, but a lot of times fiction is like, I go through phases where I just want to read all of the things. Like I want to read different types of books, different types of stories, get lost in different worlds, just because it's like, it just pulls you out of your current reality, right? And it gives you something else to think about. It gives you something else to ponder, and to follow someone else's story of these characters who go through different challenges and different things. And sometimes there's heartbreak, but that's okay. I can deal with that. As long as it's interesting and capturing, as long as it captures your interest and just keeps you going. Like the story needs to keep moving forward. I don't like feeling stuck and it's just kind of like there's no movement in a story. That's when I get bored, and that's when I'm like, do I finish this book? Or do I kind of get through it? The pace is slower, meaning it makes the ending even worth it. Okay. I get it. Defense D. Okay, here we go. I like it. Yeah, make your username easier for people to read. Though to be honest, like when I'm reading usernames really quickly, unless I see it over and over and over again, or someone else pronounces it, where I'm like, how do you pronounce something? Because it's like just it's just like showing up really quickly. I'm just like, I'm just gonna do my best. It's okay, we can have nicknames here too. Yeah, I do like it. You fit right in. Yeah, I love it. I'm gonna vamp. We're just gonna hang out and vamp for like 20 more minutes because I think Brad is meant to stream at 11 my time, 2 Eastern. So if you want to chat about whatever, books, paints, inks, stationery, whatever, I'm here for another 20 minutes, and we'll raid and jump over to Brad's stream. So anything you want to talk about is fine. I have a chapter in Gobelino, London, and a Scourge of Pleasantries by Kim M. Watt. I don't think I've ever heard of it. Is that one book? Yeah, it sounds like, what is it about? Get the book. A lot more world building. Yeah, let's... Spicy, I think we're going to start reminding you of this Google Doc. Where are your recommendations? Yeah, I'd love to see it too. Sure. Especially if you, I don't know if you rank it in a certain way, or if you're able to add notes to sort of the books that stand out to you. Maybe not all of them, but, or the authors. At least with that, like authors that you kind of, you're like, yeah, great writing, whatever you sort of look for. I think for everyone, it may vary in terms of what type of writing you're attracted to or find interesting to read. But, you know, at least if I know, like if it is slow, but it's because it's character building or world building, or it's kind of like giving a description so that you feel like you're there versus always like having action, you know, things are happening. But it's more so a slower pace because there's a purpose to that, then I'm fine with it because I know that's what I'm expecting, right? But if I start a book and I'm just like, whoa, I thought this was gonna be just, you know, action or whatever, or if it's gonna be a thriller or a mystery, but I'm not getting that, then it's like there's a disconnect. So that's why I love recommendations and going off of what other people are saying, because it's like I know what to expect, or at least I can come at it with like, okay, it's gonna be this style of writing or storytelling. You have a meeting at 2? No. Oh no. We'll miss you. But if you're able to jump in for a little bit. But depends, we are going to look forward to hearing about your experience with the kakuno. So don't forget to share that with us. Right now I'm reading Shadows of Self from Brandon Robinson. Are you liking it so far? Yeah. No, not scores to books, but more so like notes on, oh, I see, because I said rank. Maybe not rank, but like, you know, which ones you're drawn to because of a certain reason, maybe. Or just list them. It's all good. I don't mind. Yeah, it devaluates, but also it's like subjective, right? Something you might like better than something else doesn't necessarily mean that it is better than something else. Just means that you like it. So Robin Hobb book series is called The Realm of the Elderling. She wrote almost her books by trilogy, so it's, oh, okay, so it's not hard to follow. It's book 1 in a series. Oh, yours is a book 1 in a series. Ooh, I like series. As a PI urban fantasy series. Ooh, let me know if you like it. Maybe send me a message on Instagram so I can write it down too. R.F. Kuang has some good books also. Okay. Yeah, Dresden Files, Jade City. Jade City I've done. Brandon Sanderson. Yeah, okay, that I recognize. Yeah. Anything Brandon Sanderson is great. It's well known too. Yeah. Huh, another one for Dresden Files. That's interesting. Brandon Sanderson is a good entry as a writer. Yeah, I think when I was first sort of getting into like fantasy and other types of genres, I think that Brandon Sanderson was one of the authors that was recommended just in general as like a good way to enter worlds. Yeah, okay. Oh, it has a talking cat, so you know I'm already invested. Yes, of course. That makes perfect sense. I like it. Yeah, I think I'm going to add the Dresden Files to my list too. If you want to challenge Malazan. Oh, it's wonderful. So is Codex of Alera. Jim Butcher got challenged to write Pokemon was Roman Legion. Oh, you couldn't get into that. Okay. What was Malazan about? Like, how was that challenging? It's very heavy. Oh, okay. Interesting. I'm gonna write the Dresden Files on my list. I kind of like series too, because a lot like fantasy type of genres tend to be series because there is world building, right? Like it's not like you can just like jump in and know everything about different characters or different types of species or, you know, whatever. We're like, this is different than my world or like our reality. So obviously there needs to be a little bit of explaining and building happening. So I like when it's a series, especially if it's a little bit longer, just because you can get into it. Bonus points if it's audiobooks. Because then, like, you know, I could just plug in, listen to it, do other things too. But that being said, I also kind of like getting lost in like a world. And there's, you know, a physical way of reading something too is it's kind of nice. But if it's really long, I'm more likely to listen to it as an audiobook than to get the books. But Spicy, you're all set with your books, so although, are you a fast reader? Like, do you get through your books relatively quickly, or do you kind of like sit with them? And I like series when they are complete. Yeah, the waiting sucks sometimes, especially if things happen or there's a lot of moving parts. Because then it's like similar to watching a series on, you know, like you're watching a series on Netflix or whatever, a streaming, and it's like you gotta wait either for the next episode to drop or for the next season, and they try and connect it. So you're like, ugh. I just want to listen, watch, and read everything. I just want to binge. I want to know what happens, but yeah, waiting kind of sucks sometimes. I think for that reason, I do like reading older series sometimes, because especially if I know I'm going to want to get through the whole thing. It's one of those things where it's like, if a complete series is there, then I can take my time getting through it and know that I'll get to the end for sure. So Malazan was basically a D&D campaign. Oh, okay. Oh, right. Okay. I see what you're saying. 50 to 100 pages per hour. Wow. 50 to 60. Yeah. 70 to 80. Wow. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, fast reading doesn't mean anything if you can't process, like if you're not actually comprehending. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can skim read things. Though if it's the book where, like, I've had books where it just kind of like it continues on and on and on and on, and by skimming some of that stuff, it's like, I can get past this. Right? But he is Canadian. Oh, interesting. Huh. But for the most part, like if the author has intentionally written words, I want to follow them. But yeah, I wonder if I still have my paper copy. I was thinking of trying to annotate more. Yeah, you should. Oh, from Toronto. What? Torontonian. That's cool. Huh. I'll just have to look into it a little bit. Huh. That's very cool. Second book gets much better than first. He got a lot better. He was like, whoa, people are actually reading this? Or got into the groove of it, which is like, either way, it's good. Yeah. The most disappointing thing would be if like the first book was really good, or, you know, written a certain way, and then the second book or the rest of the books in that series just went downhill. It's like, you know, just didn't really follow the first book or the second book. And that can happen, right? Like it can happen with series sometimes where you go through ups and downs, or different characters too. Like there are books where they're like different characters that are focused on, and sometimes you can't connect with certain friends. Bailey, you made a stream. It's been years. No, I'm just kidding. But it's been a while. How are you, friend? We've missed you. I've missed you. Yay, I'm so glad you're here too. Welcome. Join our painting / book club. We're talking about books right now. But yeah, welcome in. Feels like it. It does. It feels, I know. Time goes by slow, and yet it goes by fast. Right? Especially if you haven't seen or talked to someone in a little while or whatever. It can feel like forever. This painting needs Sailor Akibi. Get out of here, Spicy. Get out of here with your Akibi. Although I will say the Day to Night is kind of like that, you know, Akibi vibe, right? You should like that one. I know there's nothing that compares to Akibi for you, but if you're into those shades, Akibi is kind of there, right? Let me just keep an eye on when Brad goes live, because I don't, yeah. Okay, he's not there. But we will raid. We'll jump over to Brad's stream when he goes live, if he's still going live at 11 or 2 Eastern. Or let me know if you get the notification, because I think I've muted my notifications on my phone. Oh, the sneak peek is the new ink that the TheCoffeeMonsterzCo is releasing in April, maybe, I think at this point. But it's Robert Oster and the TheCoffeeMonsterzCo, called Murky Pond Water. And it's this shade. So I included it. You can see it's this sort of gray blue color. Yeah, we're just kind of exploring it. And it's really, really nice because it's, you know, from when you first look at it, it's like gray. And then you're like, maybe it has a little bit of blue in there, but also kind of teal, right? Then you get this like pink, purple, I think lavender is how Helen described it. Like, look at those layers of just awesome shades coming through, right? So yeah, I got a sample from her a couple weeks ago just to test out and just to try it out and stuff. So I don't have the bottle, but I will definitely pick up a bottle when it's released. Yeah. Heck yes, gray, right? You just put out a great ink video today. Okay, I'll have to check it out. You need that one? I need it too. We all need it. It's so good. I do like Akibi. I was just teasing Spicy Miso. Akibi is a really nice ink. I'm not as obsessed with Akibi as Spicy Miso is, but I will give it that thumbs up. It's good. It's really good. Robert Oster is doing some cool collabs. Yeah, they did the Jersey Devil ink with Gold Spot, right? Yes. The one that Brad and Mike, I think both of them had, they did swatches and showed it off. It does look really good too. Yeah. Meeting time. Oh, I hope you have a good meeting and I hope you have a good day. And I hope you end up getting the kakuno on time, delivered, no problems, and that you get to play with it and enjoy it. We're all rooting for you. We're all like, yes. I'm so glad you got it. Wait, you do videos? Yes, go follow Bailey. Is it your same username? I know it's gonna pop up on my feed, I think, but yes, on the YouTubes is my awkward self. Hey, we're all awkward here. It's all okay. We're your people. We're here. It's the fountain pen ink station. Okay. It's crazy. I haven't changed for 2 months. Yeah, that's, I mean, it's not crazy. And 2 months is not that long. If you really like an ink or if you like a pen, even like I've had pens inked up with the same ink for a while, months and months. So it's not crazy. But you are definitely a fan. You're definitely a fan of a kiwi. I'm too lazy to change it. Well, yeah, that will play into it. Yours is Monteverde Purple Mist. Oh, I don't think I've tried that ink ever. But is it like an off purple? No. I'm having issues with my I think Brad is on. Yeah. Okay, he started streaming. So we'll jump over to Brad's stream. Do you think we'll get chroma shaders from Pilot? I don't know. That might be too much spicy. It works really well in my Sailor. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, let's hop over to Brad. But thank you so much, friends, for being here. Thanks for being part of this community and joining streams. I'll see you next Monday, most likely. If you don't follow me on Instagram, I'm from Corolla on there. And I usually try and post reminders when I'm streaming. So join me there. Join me on Monday. We'll do more fun stationery stuff. Talk about books if you want. But yeah, appreciate you, friends. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to set up the raid.